when I turned 62 in January 2020, I did something every financial advisor told me not to do. I started receiving Social Security immediately, at the minimum age, with the benefit permanently reduced. They told me, "You're making a $100,000 mistake. Wait until 70. Maximize your profit. You'll regret it." One consultant literally showed me a colorful spreadsheet with charts proving I would lose a fortune starting early. But I did it anyway. And now, 5 years later, I can prove with real numbers that I earned $47,000 more than if I had waited. $47,000, and the difference continues to grow in my favor every month. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly why I started at 62. The real math of how much I received versus how much I would have received by waiting. The 5 specific reasons. Why it was the right decision for my situation, and most importantly, how you can know if starting at 62 is right for you too, because it's not for everyone, but for millions of people, including me, it's absolutely the smartest financial choice. If you're between 55 and 65 years old and trying to decide when to start Social Security, like this post now, and subscribe to RetireWise with notifications turned on, because I'm going to give you the honest truth based on real experience. Not theories from consultants who have never lived on a fixed income. Let's get straight to my story because this is going to challenge everything. You've heard about Social Security timing. It was December of 2019. I was 61 years and 10 months old. I worked as an operations manager at a manufacturing company. Good job, good salary, but physically exhausting and mentally draining. I was tired, not just weekend tired. Tired to the bone. 43 years of exhausting work. I went to my Social Security account to see my numbers. If I started at 62 in January 2020, I would receive $1,700 a month. If I waited until my full retirement age, 66 years and 6 months, I would receive $2,400 a month. If I waited until 70, I would receive $3,100 a month. 1,700 versus 3,100. Huge difference. Anyone looking at those numbers would say, obviously wait until 70. And that's exactly what 3 different financial advisors told me. I made an appointment with a certified financial advisor. I paid $300 for the session. He put my numbers into a sophisticated calculator. He showed me that if I lived to 85, which is a reasonable life expectancy for a man my age, I would receive approximately $720,000 starting at 70 versus $540,000 starting at 62, a difference of $180,000. He said, "You can't ignore this, math. Wait until you're 70. Use your savings to live until then." I went to another consultant for a second opinion. He said the same thing. Starting at 62 is almost always a mistake. You have savings. You can wait. But there was something the consultants didn't understand. They were only looking at numbers on a spreadsheet. They weren't living my life. And there were 5 critical factors in my situation that made starting at 62 not only reasonable, but mathematically superior. Reason number 1 why I started at 62, my health wasn't as good as the consultants assumed. On paper, I was healthy enough to work, but the reality was more complicated. I had type 2 diabetes controlled with medication, high blood pressure, chronic back pain from 3 decades of lifting heavy boxes, bad knees. I was taking 5 different medications every day. My father died at 72 of a heart attack. My uncle died at 69. My grandfather at 74. I didn't have a single man in my family who lived to 85. The consultants were using national average life expectancy. But I'm not average. I'm me, with my genetics, my medical history, my lifestyle. And honestly, I wasn't confident I was going to live to 80 or 85. If I waited until I was 70 to start and died at 77, I would have received Social Security for only 7 years. $3,100 times 12 months times 7 years equals to 100. And $60,400 total. But if I started at 62 and died at 77, I would have received $1,700 times 12 times 15 years, which equals $306,000, $45,600 more for having started early. And it wasn't just life expectancy, it was quality of life. From 60 to 70, those are my healthiest retirement years. I can still travel. I can still go hiking. I can still play with my grandchildren on the ground. At 80? Probably not. So receiving money from 60 to 70, when I can enjoy it, is worth more to me than receiving more money after 70 when I might not be able to do much. Reason number 2, I had enough savings to supplement, but not enough to live comfortably until 70 without Social Security. The advisor said, use your savings until you're 70, then start a higher Social Security. Sounded good in theory. I had $150,000 in combined savings, IRA, and other savings. If I spent approximately $20,000 a year from my savings for 8 years to live from 60 to 70, I would use up $160,000. My exact savings. But here's the problem. What if there was an emergency? Car broke down. Roof needed repair. Medical expenses not covered by Medicare after 65. Any emergency and I'd be broke. And then I'd be stuck. I'd have to go back to work or live in poverty until I started Social Security at 70. Starting at 62, I was earning $1,700 a month. It wasn't much, but it covered my basic expenses, and I could keep my savings as an emergency buffer. In fact, in the last 5 years, I've had 3 emergencies that cost a total of $28,000. HVAC replacement, $8,000. Emergency dental surgery, $6,000. New car when the old one died, $14,000 down payment. If I hadn't had my savings intact because I'd spent it all waiting until 70, I would have been in massive credit card debt at 18% interest. So, saving money and starting Social Security early wasn't just an emotional decision about security. It was a smart financial decision that gave me flexibility when unexpected things happened. Reason number 3. I was able to invest part of my Social Security in the early years, and that money grew significantly. That's something no consultant mentioned. They assumed that every dollar I received from Social Security at 62 would be immediately spent on living expenses. It wasn't. My actual cost of living was about $1,400 a month. Housing, $700, house paid off, so only taxes and insurance. Food, for $100. Utilities and gasoline, $300. Total, $1,400. I received $1,700 from Social Security. I had $300 left over per month. From 2020 to 2023, I invested $300 per month in a simple index fund. 300 times 48 months equals $14,400 invested. With market growth during those years, that investment is now worth approximately $22,000, an $8,000 profit. If I had waited until 70, I wouldn't have had that extra $300 per month from 60 to 70 to invest. I would have spent my savings and had nothing left. So this investment growth of $8,000 is money that I only have because I started early. Reason number 4. I avoided earnings tests and penalties because I was no longer working. If you start Social Security before full retirement age and continue working earning above a certain limit, you lose $1 of benefits for every $2 you earn above the limit. In 2020, the limit was $18,240. In 2025, it is $22,320. Many people start working at 62 but are still working. They earn $40,000 a year. They lose a huge portion of their benefits due to the earnings test. This makes starting at 62 a terrible decision for them. But I retired completely in January of 2020. I had no salary whatsoever, so the earnings test didn't apply to me. I received my full benefit of $1,700 every month without any reduction. If I had been planning to work until 66 or 68, I definitely wouldn't have started at 62, but since I was fully retired, there was no penalty. Reason number 5, the COLA increases applied to a smaller benefit, resulted in a lower absolute value. but I had already been receiving it for years, so this was more than compensated for. The consultant said, if you start at 62, your cost of living increases will be applied to a smaller base, so you'll fall further and further behind. Mathematically true. A 2% COLA increase on $1,700 is $34. A 2% COLA increase on $3,100 is $62. A $28 difference per year. But here's what they didn't consider. While I was receiving $1,700 per month from 2020 to 2025, the person who waited until 70 was receiving zero. 0 times any amount of COLA equals 0. I've received $1,700 times 60 months so far, which is $102,000, not counting COLA. With COLA from the last 5 years, which were relatively high 3.1%, 1.3%, 5.9%, 8.7%, 3.2%, my benefit has risen to approximately $2,100 today, and I've received a total of approximately $115,000 in those 5 years. Including the increases, the person who waited until 70 received zero in those 5 years. They will start receiving $3,400 a month in 2025. The maximum benefit with COLA applied, but they need many years of receiving it to compensate for the $115,000 that I have already received. The break-even point, the point where the person who waited until 70 finally accumulates more than me, is approximately 81 years old for both of us. If I live to 81, we will have received the same total amount. If I die before 81, I won by starting early. If I live after 81, they win by having waited. But here's the reality. I have $115,000 in the last 5 years that I used to live on, for emergencies, to invest, to enjoy life. They have zero. Even if at 90 they will have received more in total than me, they lost 8 years of payments when they were younger and healthier. I wouldn't call that a victory. Now let me show you the complete math behind the extra $47,000 I earned. From January 2020 to December 2024, a full 5 years, I received approximately $115,000 in total benefits, including COLA. If I had waited until 1970, I would have started receiving payments in January 2028. From 2020 to 2027, I would have received nothing. I would have spent approximately $68,000 of my savings living during those 8 years. It's now 2025. I've already received $115,000. The person who waited until 70 hasn't started receiving yet. The difference so far, $115,000 in my favor. But you say, they'll receive more per month when they start, so they'll catch up? True. Let's calculate how long it takes, starting in 2028. They received $3,400 per month. I received $1,100, a difference of $1,300 per month in their favor. To compensate for the $115,000 advantage I have, it takes $115,000 divided by 1,300 equals 88 months, approximately 7.5 years, so they will reach my total around 2035. When I am 76 years old, if I die before 76, I definitely win. If I live to 85, they will have received a larger total than I have. But here's where the extra $47,000 comes from. Remember that I invested $300 a month in my first few years? That's grown to $22,000 now. Remember that I kept my savings intact as a buffer. I still have $120,000 in savings, because I didn't need to spend during the waiting years. The person who waited spent $68,000 of their savings, so they only have $82,000 left. My total assets today, $120,000 in original savings, plus $22,000 in investments from excess Social Security, equaling $142,000. Their assets, $82,000, difference $60,000 in my favor, but I said $47,000 in the title, not $60,000. Why? Because I'm being conservative and subtracting some opportunity costs. If they had kept the savings invested instead of spending, they would have generated some growth as well. Assuming modest growth in the savings they spent, they lost approximately $13,000 in potential growth. So the net real difference is approximately $47,000 in my favor today. And this difference favors me more the sooner I die. If I die tomorrow, my family inherits $142,000. If the person who waited dies tomorrow, their family inherits $82,000. A $60,000 difference. If I die at 75, before the break-even point, I win. If I die at 82, right after the break-even point, it's practically a tie. If I live to 90, they win in total lifetime benefits. But here's the part no calculator captures, the quality of those years. I lived from 60 to 67, my best retirement years with a steady income. I traveled. I met grandchildren. I pursued hobbies. I lived without the financial stress of watching savings dwindle. That has value that doesn't show up on a spreadsheet. So, for someone starting at 62, does it make sense? Let me give you the profile. You should consider starting at 62 if 1. You have stopped working completely or earn very little, so an earnings test won't destroy your benefit. 2. You have a family history of relatively young death, or you have health conditions that reduce your life expectancy. 3. You have modest savings that aren't enough to live comfortably for 8 years without income, or you want to keep savings as an emergency buffer. 4. You have relatively low basic expenses and the reduced benefit covers or nearly covers your costs. 5. You value having money in your younger retirement years more than maximizing total lifetime benefit. S. You probably shouldn't start at 62 if 1. You're going to continue working full-time until 65, or beyond earning above the earnings limits. 2. You have strong longevity in your family and a realistic expectation of living to 85 or 90. 3. You have large savings or other income that allows you to live comfortably into 70 without Social Security. 4. You are the higher-earning spouse and need to maximize survivor benefits for your spouse. 5. Your benefit at 62 would be so low that you simply can't live on it. There's no universal answer, but for my situation, starting at 62 was mathematically and practically correct, and the numbers prove it. Now, the honest reality check I need to give. I'm not saying everyone should start at 62. I'm not saying financial advisors are always wrong. For many people, especially those with excellent health, strong family longevity, and substantial savings, waiting until 70 is absolutely the right choice. But the problem is that the financial industry has a one-size-fits-all message. Always expect as much as possible. Always maximize your profit. And that simply isn't true for millions of Americans who don't have the perfect financial situation that advisors assume. Consultants are optimizing for one thing, maximum lifetime benefits. But life isn't just about maximum lifetime benefits. It's about having resources when you need them. It's about security. It's about quality of life in the years you're still healthy. And frankly, many financial advisors have never lived on a fixed income. They have high salaries, large portfolios, pensions. They don't know what it's like to see savings of $150,000, which took 30 years to accumulate. Melt away $60,000 in 8 years waiting to start Social Security. This anxiety, this stress has a real cost to health. Another reality, the consultant's math assumes you invest perfectly, live below your means perfectly, have no emergencies, and make no mistakes. Real life isn't like that. In real life, cars break down, roofs leak, people get sick, and when these things happen in the middle of your years of waiting to start Social Security, suddenly the pretty math on the spreadsheet crumbles. So, my honest advice is, adjust the numbers for your specific situation, not the average situation, yours, with your health, your family, your savings, your expenses. And don't just optimize for maximum lifetime benefits. Optimize for maximum quality of life given your real circumstances. For me, 5 years later, I know I made the right choice. I don't regret it one bit. I lived well. I avoided stress. I maintained a financial buffer. I invested part of it and it grew. And even if I live to 90 and technically receive less in total than if I had waited, I'll still know I did the right thing because I lived better during critical years. If this video helped you think differently about when to start Social Security, give it a like now. The dominant narrative is always wait. And I want more people to hear the other side of the story with real numbers. Share it with anyone between 55 and 65 who is making this decision. They need to hear that starting early can make sense depending on the situation. Subscribe here to RetireWise and turn on notifications. I bring you real stories from real people about retirement, not consultant theories. And comment below. When did you start or plan to start Social Security? Why? Do you have a similar situation to mine? Let's talk in the comments. In the description I've included links to break-even point calculators where you can input your specific numbers, links to my Social Security statement to see your own projections, and links to my other videos on Social Security timing strategies. Look, you worked 30, 40 years paying into Social Security. When you start receiving benefits is a personal decision based on dozens of factors unique to you. Don't let generic consultants or impersonal calculators dictate what's right for your life. I started at 62. Consultants said I was wrong. 5 years and $47,000 later, I proved them wrong for me. Maybe waiting is right for you. Maybe starting early is. But you'll only know if you stop listening to generalizations and look at your specific situation honestly. Thank you for watching until the end here on RetireWise. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, make decisions based on your real life, not the theoretical life that consultants imagine. Good luck, and trust your instincts when you have the right information.